Most parents think children with ADHD need more discipline, more reminders, more consequences to finally get it. But what looks like defiance or laziness is actually a neurological difference in how their brain processes time, motivation, and emotional regulation. When you say just focus to a child with ADHD, you're asking their brain to do something it's structurally not wired to do without support. It's like telling someone who's nearsighted to just see better. This isn't about lowering expectations or making excuses. It's about understanding that traditional parenting language was designed for neurotypical brains. And when you use it with ADHD brains, it teaches a devastating lesson. I'm broken, I'm lazy. Everyone else can do this easily, so something must be fundamentally wrong with me. And because this message is reinforced dozens of times daily through well-meaning corrections and consequences, the pattern deepens. Years later, that same child becomes an adult with ADHD who has above-average intelligence but crippling shame, who can hyper-focus for hours on things that interest them but can't seem to do simple tasks everyone else manages easily, who believes they're fundamentally flawed because nobody ever explained that their brain works differently, not defectively. Here's what most people don't understand about ADHD. It's not a deficit of attention. It's inconsistent access to executive function, the brain's management system that helps you plan, organize, start tasks, regulate emotions, and shift focus. I'm Sarah from The Parenting Blind Spot, and in this video, we'll talk about the specific phrases that harm children with ADHD, what these phrases actually teach their developing sense of self, and exactly what to say instead to build competence rather than shame, and what this means for understanding both your child's neurology and how to support them in becoming confident adults who understand their brains rather than fighting them. Number 1, stop saying, just focus. This phrase might be the most damaging thing you can repeatedly say to a child with ADHD. Here's the scenario. Your child is doing homework. You check on them and they're staring out the window, clicking their pen, doing anything except the work in front of them. From your perspective, the solution is obvious. Just focus, just pay attention. Just concentrate on what's in front of you. You think you're giving them a simple direction, a reminder of what they should be doing, a nudge back to task. But here's what your child with ADHD is experiencing. Their brain is receiving dozens of inputs simultaneously: the texture of the pen, the sound of the air conditioning, a thought about something that happened at lunch, the physical discomfort of sitting still, the anxiety about the assignment, the bird outside the window. For a neurotypical brain, there's a filter that automatically sorts these inputs. This is important. This is background noise. For an ADHD brain, that filter is inconsistent. Everything comes through at similar volumes. So when you say just focus, what they hear is just do the thing your brain is structurally unable to do reliably without support. What their nervous system learns is, my inability to focus is a choice I'm making. I'm failing at something that should be easy. Everyone else can just focus, so I must be fundamentally broken or not trying hard enough. Think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to listen to someone speaking to you in a crowded restaurant where every conversation is happening at the same volume. You can't turn down the other tables. You can't make their voice louder. You're straining to hear, desperately trying to follow what they're saying. And someone leans over and says, just listen, just pay attention. Why is this so hard for you? You're not choosing not to listen. You're fighting against an environment where the signal-to-noise ratio makes listening exponentially harder. That's what just focus feels like to a child with ADHD. You're blaming them for a neurological difference they didn't choose and can't simply overcome through willpower. So here's what to do. From now on, when you notice your child is off task, stop saying, just focus. Start saying, I notice you're having trouble staying with this. What would help right now? Do you need to move your body first? Change locations? Break this into smaller chunks? Use a timer? You're doing several critical things. First, you're acknowledging the difficulty without blame. You're having trouble versus you're not trying. Second, you're problem solving together instead of demanding they access a function that's not available. Third, you're teaching them to recognize when they need support and what kinds of support work for their brain. You might also say, your brain works differently with focus. It's not about trying harder. It's about finding what helps your specific brain stay with boring tasks. Let's figure out your strategies. This tells their nervous system, my brain isn't broken. It works differently. There are strategies that can help. My parent is on my team in figuring this out. This pattern, repeated hundreds of times, teaches self-awareness and strategic thinking instead of shame, because the child learns that ADHD isn't a moral failing requiring more willpower. It's a neurological difference requiring different strategies. Number 2, stop saying, "You're so smart, you just need to apply yourself." This phrase feels encouraging to parents. You're trying to motivate your child by reminding them of their intelligence. But to a child with ADHD, this is one of the most painful things they can hear repeatedly. Here's the scenario. Report card comes home. Your child got an A in science, their passion project, a C in math, boring but necessary, incomplete marks in social studies because they couldn't remember to turn in work, and notes from teachers, not working to potential, needs to apply themselves more. You sit down with them and say, "You're so smart, I know you can do better. You just need to try harder. You just need to apply yourself." From your perspective, you're being supportive. You believe in their ability. You're encouraging them to use their intelligence. But here's what your child with ADHD actually experiences. They are trying. They're trying desperately. It takes them 3 times longer to start tasks than their peers. They forget assignments not because they don't care, but because their working memory is impaired. They can focus intensely on science because it's interesting. ADHD brains can access focus through interest, but can't access that same focus for math, no matter how hard they try. So when you say, "You're smart, you just need to apply yourself," what they hear is, you have the ability, but you're choosing not to use it. Your failures are character flaws, not neurological challenges. What their nervous system learns is, being smart makes my failures even worse. I can't even use the excuse of not being capable. I'm smart enough to succeed, but too lazy, too unmotivated, too fundamentally flawed to actually do it. Something is morally wrong with me. Think about it this way. Imagine you have a sports car with an unreliable ignition. Sometimes it starts immediately. Sometimes it takes 20 tries. Sometimes it won't start at all, even though the engine is powerful and well built. Now imagine someone saying, "This is a great car. It just needs to run better. Just start consistently." The problem isn't the engine, it's the starting mechanism. Telling the car to just start doesn't fix the ignition system. ADHD is an ignition problem, not an engine problem. Your child's intelligence, the engine, is fine. Their ability to start tasks, sustain attention on non-preferred activities, and consistently access their capabilities, the ignition, is what's inconsistent. Apply yourself assumes the ignition works fine, and they're just choosing not to turn the key. So here's what to do. When you're reviewing work or grades with your ADHD child, stop saying, "You're so smart, you just need to apply yourself." Start saying, "I can see you're working really hard." ADHD makes some things harder for your brain even when you're trying. Let's figure out what got in the way here. Was it trouble starting? Trouble remembering? Trouble staying with boring material? Then we can build strategies for that specific challenge. You're doing something completely different. First, you're acknowledging their effort, not questioning it. Second, you're naming ADHD as the variable, not their character. Third, you're collaborating on strategy, not demanding they access something inconsistently available. You might also say, "Your brain is good at lots of things." And ADHD means some tasks that seem simple to other people are genuinely harder for you. That's not an excuse, it's information. When we understand what's hard and why, we can build support around it. Or even, you know what? That C in math, when you have ADHD and math doesn't interest you, that represents way more effort than the A in science. I see how hard you're working. This tells their nervous system, my effort is recognized even when results don't show it. ADHD is real. My struggles are valid. My parent sees me trying. We're solving problems together, not fighting about my character. This pattern, repeated hundreds of times, teaches self-compassion and strategic thinking instead of shame, because the child learns that inconsistent performance isn't moral failure. It's a neurological reality that can be supported. Number 3, stop saying, "You did it yesterday. Why can't you do it today?" This phrase reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about how ADHD works, and it creates profound confusion and shame in children. Here's the scenario. Yesterday, your child got ready for school in 20 minutes. Today, 40 minutes later, they're still not dressed. they've gotten distracted 3 times, and you're going to be late. You're frustrated because you saw them do this successfully yesterday. So you say, "You did this fine yesterday. Why can't you just do it again today? I know you can do this." From your perspective, this is proof that they can do it. So today must be about not trying, not caring, or deliberately being difficult. But here's what you need to understand about ADHD. Executive function availability is inconsistent. It's not like a skill that, once learned, is always accessible. It's more like a resource that fluctuates based on factors the child often can't control. How they slept, stress levels, how interesting the task is, whether they've already depleted their executive function on other tasks that morning. Yesterday, maybe they woke up rested. Their brain chemistry happened to be more balanced. They were less anxious, or the task had enough novelty left to engage their attention. Today, those variables are different. The task is now boring and routine. They're tired. They're stressed about a test. Their executive function is depleted. So when you say, "You did it yesterday, why can't you do it today?" what they hear is, your inconsistency is proof you're not trying. You're choosing to fail today. What their nervous system learns is, "I can't even trust myself. I never know if I'll be able to do basic things. Everyone thinks I'm faking or being difficult because I'm so inconsistent. I must be broken in a way that even I don't understand." Think about it this way. Imagine you have a phone with a battery that drains at unpredictable rates. Some days it lasts all day. Some days it's dead by noon, even though you used it the same amount. Now imagine someone saying, "It worked fine yesterday. Why won't it hold a charge today? I know this phone can last all day. It did it yesterday." The inconsistency isn't the phone trying less hard. It's a variable system responding to factors that aren't always visible or controllable. A DHD executive function is like that battery. The inconsistency is the disability. So here's what to do. When your child is struggling with something they did successfully before, stop saying, "You did it yesterday. Why can't you do it today?" Start saying, "I know this is something you've done before. And I also know ADHD means you can't always access the same abilities consistently. What's making it harder today? What support do you need right now?" You're teaching them something crucial. First, that inconsistency is part of ADHD, not evidence of moral failure. Second, that you understand their struggles are real, even when they're variable. Third, that the question isn't, "Why aren't you trying?" but "What's different today and how can we adapt?" You might say, "ADHD brains have good days and hard days with executive function. This is a hard day. That's not your fault. Let's add more support today." Or, "You know what's really hard about ADHD? You can't always predict when your brain will cooperate. That must be so frustrating. Let's build in backup strategies for the hard days." Or even, "Yesterday was a good executive function day. Today is a hard one. Both are real. Both are ADHD. We're going to support both." This tells their nervous system, "My inconsistency doesn't mean I'm faking. It's part of how ADHD works. My parent gets this. We can adapt rather than expect consistency that's neurologically unrealistic." This pattern, repeated hundreds of times, teaches self-understanding and flexibility instead of shame, because the child learns that ADHD isn't something they can just overcome through willpower. It's a genuine neurological variable that requires adaptive support. Number 4, stop saying, "Why didn't you just write it down?" This phrase assumes memory failure is a choice or a simple oversight that can be corrected by obvious tools. Here's the scenario. Your child comes home without their homework assignment. Again, when you ask about it, they don't remember what the teacher assigned. You're exasperated. "Why didn't you just write it down? I've told you 100 times. Write things down. Use your planner. It's not that hard." From your perspective, you've provided a solution, planner, notebook, system, reminded them multiple times. And the answer is simple, just use the tool. But here's what's actually happening for your child with ADHD. Working memory, the ability to hold information in mind long enough to write it down, transfer it to a planner, or remember to use the system, is significantly impaired in ADHD. The teacher says the assignment. Your child intends to write it down. But between hearing it and pulling out their planner, 3 other inputs happen. Someone drops a book. They notice their pencil is dull. Another thought interrupts. By the time they have the planner open, the assignment is gone from working memory. Or they write it in the planner, but forget to look at the planner when they get home. Or they remember the planner exists, but can't remember where they put it. It's not that they're not trying to use the system. It's that the executive function required to consistently use organizational systems is exactly what ADHD impairs. So when you say, "Why didn't you just write it down?" what they hear is, "This simple solution proves you're not trying." Your continued failure to do this obvious thing is willful negligence. What their nervous system learns is, "I can't even do the simple things that would help me. I fail at basic life management. I'm not just struggling with school. I'm struggling with the solutions everyone says should fix it. I'm hopeless." Think about it this way. Imagine someone with a broken leg being told, "Just walk normally. I gave you crutches. Why are you still limping? Just use the crutches I provided." But what if the crutches themselves require coordination and strength they don't have yet? What if they forget where they put the crutches? What if they're too overwhelmed to remember to grab the crutches before trying to walk? The solution tool itself requires the very capacity that's impaired. That's what planners and organizational systems are for ADHD kids. The tools require working memory and executive function to use consistently, the exact things ADHD impairs. So here's what to do. When your child forgets information they should have recorded, stop saying, "Why didn't you just write it down?" Start saying, "Your working memory made that hard. Let's build a system that doesn't rely just on you remembering. Can we get assignments emailed to me? Can we take a photo of the board? Can we have a backup way to capture information?" You're doing something completely different. First, you're acknowledging that working memory is the issue, not effort. Second, you're collaborating on systems that work with their brain, not against it. Third, you're building redundancy into the system, so it doesn't rely solely on the impaired executive function. You might also say, writing things down requires working memory to remember to write it down. That's genuinely harder for ADHD brains. So we're going to build external support that doesn't depend only on your memory. Or, I know you want to remember and use the planner. ADHD makes that hard. Let's find what actually works for your brain, not what's supposed to work in general. Or even, here's what I'm seeing. The organization tool itself requires organization to use. That's asking a lot from an ADHD brain. Let's simplify. This tells their nervous system, "I'm not failing because I'm not trying." The solution requires the very thing ADHD impairs. My parent sees this. We can build support that actually matches how my brain works. This pattern, repeated hundreds of times, teaches strategic problem solving instead of shame, because the child learns that solutions need to be ADHD compatible, not just theoretically logical. Number 5, stop saying, "Calm down." Calm down seems like reasonable direction when your child is having a meltdown, but it fundamentally misunderstands emotional regulation in ADHD. Here's the scenario. Something frustrating happens. Maybe a video game freezes, or homework is confusing, or a sibling said something annoying. Your child's reaction seems completely disproportionate to the trigger. They're yelling, crying, completely overwhelmed. You say, "Calm down. This isn't a big deal. Just calm down and we can talk about it." From your perspective, you're trying to help them regulate. You're pointing out that the situation doesn't warrant this level of response. You're asking them to access reason so you can problem solve. But here's what's happening in your ADHD child's brain. Emotional regulation is an executive function. ADHD brains have significant difficulty with emotional regulation, not just attention regulation. When emotions spike, they spike faster and higher than neurotypical brains, and the ability to bring them back down is impaired. It's not that they're choosing to overreact, it's that their brain's emotion regulation system is offline in that moment. So when you say calm down, you're asking them to access a system that's currently not available. It's like asking someone who's drowning to just swim better. What they hear is, "Your feelings are wrong and too big. You should be able to control this. Your inability to calm down is a choice you're making." What their nervous system learns is, "My emotions are wrong. They're too big. Everyone else can regulate easily. I can't even do this basic thing. My feelings make me bad." Think about it this way. Imagine you're on a boat in rough seas. The waves are tossing you violently. You're seasick, overwhelmed, can't get your bearings, and someone says, "Just stop being seasick. Just stabilize. This isn't that rough." Whether the seas are that rough, objectively, doesn't change your experience, and you literally cannot just stop being seasick through willpower. That's emotional dysregulation in ADHD. The internal experience is genuinely overwhelming, regardless of whether the trigger should cause that reaction, and they can't just turn it off. So here's what to do. When your child is emotionally dysregulated, stop saying, "Calm down." Start saying, "You're having really big feelings right now. I'm here. You're safe. Let's breathe together." Then be quiet, be present, breathe slowly yourself. Offer physical grounding if they want it. A hug, hand on their back, weighted blanket. You're not trying to stop the emotion. You're providing external regulation support while their internal regulation system is offline. After they've started to come down, not while they're still escalated, you might say ADHD brains have a harder time with emotional regulation. Your feelings get big fast, and bringing them back down is really hard. That's not your fault. Let's figure out what helps your brain regulate. You might explore, did you need to punch a pillow, run around the block, squeeze ice? What helps your body release that intensity? Or, I notice you went from okay to completely overwhelmed in seconds. That's the ADHD emotional regulation challenge. It's real. Let's build strategies for when you feel it starting. This tells their nervous system, my emotions are real and valid, even when they're big. My parent doesn't need me to be different before they'll help me. ADHD makes emotional regulation hard. There are strategies. I'm not broken. This pattern, repeated hundreds of times, teaches emotional awareness and regulation strategies instead of shame, because the child learns that their emotional intensity isn't a moral failing. It's a neurological difference that can be supported. Number 6, stop saying, just start. You'll feel like it once you begin. This advice works beautifully for neurotypical brains. For ADHD brains, it misses the core deficit. Here's the scenario. Your child has a project due. They've been avoiding it for days. You can see the anxiety building. You sit them down. Just start. Do one sentence. You'll feel better once you begin, and it won't seem so bad. From your perspective, you're addressing procrastination with proven advice. Motivation often comes after starting, not before. Getting started is the hardest part, and momentum builds from there. And for neurotypical brains, this is often true. But here's what's happening for your ADHD child. Task initiation, the ability to begin a task, especially boring or aversive tasks, is one of the most impaired executive functions in ADHD. It's not that they don't want to start, it's that their brain cannot generate the activation energy to begin. It's sometimes called the wall of awful. There's an invisible, genuine neurological barrier between them and starting the task. No amount of knowing they should start, wanting to start, or understanding they'll feel better once they start can overcome the executive function deficit that prevents initiation. So when you say just start, you're asking them to do the thing that ADHD specifically makes nearly impossible without external support or structure. What they hear is, this simple thing you can't do is proof you're not trying. Starting is easy. Your inability to start is a choice. What their nervous system learns is, everyone else can just start. I can't do this basic thing. I'm sitting here wanting to start and unable to make myself begin. I must be uniquely broken or lazy. Think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to start a manual car, but you don't have the clutch technique down yet. The engine has power. The destination is clear. You want to go. But every time you try to start, the car stalls. Someone saying, just start driving, you'll feel better once you're moving, doesn't address the technical skill deficit preventing the start. ADHD task initiation is like that missing clutch technique. The desire is there. The knowledge is there. The technical executive function to bridge wanting to start and actually starting is what's missing. So here's what to do instead. When your child is stuck in task avoidance, stop saying, just start. You'll feel like it once you begin. Start saying, task initiation is really hard for ADHD brains. Let's lower the barrier to starting. What's the tiniest possible first step? Can I sit with you for the first 5 minutes? Can we set up the environment together? What makes starting easier for your brain? You're addressing the actual deficit. First, you're naming task initiation as the ADHD specific challenge. Second, you're reducing the barrier to entry instead of expecting them to overcome it through willpower. Third, you're providing external structure and support to substitute for the missing internal executive function. You might say, let's do body doubling. I'll sit here working on my own thing. Your brain might be able to start if mine is already working nearby. What if you just set up the materials? No pressure to actually start, just get everything ready. Sometimes that tricks the ADHD brain into starting. Or, let's set a timer for 5 minutes. You only have to work for 5 minutes. ADHD brains do better with short sprints than trying to just start an overwhelming task. Or even, here's what I notice. You want to start. You're anxious about not starting, but your brain can't initiate. That's the ADHD. So we're going to add external structure to help your brain overcome the initiation barrier. This tells their nervous system, system. My inability to start isn't laziness. It's a specific ADHD challenge with task initiation. My parent understands. We can build external support for what my brain can't do internally. I'm not broken. I need different strategies. This pattern, repeated hundreds of times, teaches strategic accommodation instead of shame, because the child learns that task initiation difficulty is a genuine executive function deficit, not a character flaw, and there are concrete strategies that can help. Number 7, model compassionate self-talk about your own challenges. Everything I've talked about so far is what you say to your child, but the most powerful teaching happens in what they observe you saying to yourself. If you tell your child, ADHD means your brain works differently, not defectively, but then they hear you berating yourself for forgetting something. God, I'm so stupid. Why can't I remember anything? They learn that the compassion you offer them is something they'll need to outgrow. Children with ADHD are watching how adults handle mistakes, frustration, and challenges. If the adults around them model shame-based self-talk, that becomes the internal voice the child develops. If you forget something, instead of, I'm such an idiot, they need to hear you say, my working memory failed me there. Let me set up a system so I don't rely on just remembering next time. If you make a mistake, instead of, I'm so stupid, they need to hear, that didn't work. Let me try a different approach. If you're struggling with a task, instead of powering through silently or giving up in frustration, they need to hear, this is really hard for me. I'm going to ask for help. Take a break. Break it into smaller pieces. When you model compassionate, strategic responses to your own challenges, your child with ADHD learns. Capable adults also struggle. They don't shame themselves. They problem solve. They're kind to themselves while figuring out solutions. That's what I can aspire to. When you model ADHD-specific awareness, if you also have ADHD, even better. My ADHD made that hard. I'm going to adapt my approach. Teaches them that ADHD is something you work with, not something you berate yourself for having. So here's what this looks like. Starting now, let your child hear you. Name challenges without shame. Ask for help without apology. Adapt strategies when something isn't working. Speak kindly to yourself when you make mistakes. Acknowledge when executive function is hard, without calling yourself lazy or stupid. Say things like, I forgot to send that email again. My working memory is struggling today. I'm going to set up a system that doesn't rely on me remembering. This task is so boring that my brain doesn't want to start it. I'm going to use a timer and do it in short chunks because that works better for my brain. I made a mistake there. That's okay. Mistakes are information. Let me adjust. Your child is learning their internal voice from you. Make sure it's a voice of compassion and strategy, not shame and criticism. The language you use with your child with ADHD isn't just about being nice. It's about whether they grow up believing their brain is broken or different, whether they develop shame or self-understanding, whether they learn they're fundamentally flawed or that they need different strategies. Years from now, your child will have an internal voice that speaks to them when they struggle. That voice will be built from thousands of repetitions of what they heard from you during these formative years. Make it a voice that says, this is hard. My brain works differently. I need support and strategy. I'm not broken. I'm working with a different operating system, not a voice that says, I should be able to do this. Everyone else can. Something is fundamentally wrong with me. If you're watching this video and feeling overwhelmed or guilty about things you've already said, take a breath. That guilt is proof you care. Parents who genuinely harm their children don't seek out videos like this on the parenting blind spot. You're here because you want to do better. That already makes you different. Start today. Pick one phrase to change. Your child doesn't need perfection. They need a parent who's trying, who's learning, and who sees their struggle as real. You've got this. I'm Sarah, and I'll see you in the next video.